Good morning. This is Subarctic Beekeeper, one of the many. I wanted to follow up on something that I recorded the other day. This is a hive that I combined. It was two small colonies. One was queenless and one had or has a queen cell in it. The bottom one has the queen cell. The top one's queenless. I combined them in order to make one larger colony. Also, if there is no queen in the colony will die eventually if they don't make a new queen. And in the purple box is a colony that has been queenless for some time. I was hoping they'd make another queen. Didn't happen. We're real late in the season. It's 50 degrees out Fahrenheit. If you saw my earlier video, I'll probably attach it to this. You know that the sound wasn't great, so I'm going to speak louder. I've got a queen catcher here. I've got a funky new queen catcher here. I've got a queen marking cage here. My hive tool, my smoker's going obviously. I've got in one of my pockets a queen marking pen. This is the green year. We have an international color marking system. So all queens that are born this year are marked green. Last year was red. I prefer when it's white because it's easier to see. I'm going to take apart this hive, try and show you where I inserted the newspaper. There is a little bit left over, I think, right in front here. It's been a few days. The weather's been less than sunny and warm. So the bees have been foraging some, but not as much as they would normally. I use Old World carnioleans. I love them. They're great for our weather conditions. We have a cold front coming in that's supposed to hit today. Our temperatures are supposed to get colder, our winds up to 35 miles an hour. Then we'll get some more rain. Then we're going to have some days of sunshine. My hope is that if it's not warm enough for the drones to fly up to mate and the virgin queen to mate, my hope is that the queen from the bottom box, the yellow box, when she hatches, will mate with the drones from the purple box. Could happen. I haven't found anything that says it won't happen. And also, I don't mean to make the scowling face. Research is very valuable. But a lot of times there isn't research on certain things. So you have to go with what you know or what you've tried, what's worked, what you've learned from other people. You've got to take that information, think about it, see if it applies or not. And if it works for you, go with it. Beekeeping is all about recognizing what you're looking at, but it's also about always learning. We are never going to know everything, which is part of the joy. It's also about doing some experimenting and trusting your database and knowledge, what you know, and trying that. There's risks involved. I'm not a great big risk taker, but sometimes you got to do it. I'm going to check for feed first. I did feed these all the colonies before I combined these hives, and what was in here when I combined them was Hive Alive fondant, my super pollen patty, and the liquid syrup feed. Only the top box had access to that. With the queen being in the bottom box, they really need access to nectar. So that's why I'm checking on this now, just a few days later. I want to make sure that the bees have chewed through the newspaper, not killed each other. If they've killed each other, we'll figure that out. Typically it takes the bees enough time to chew through the newspaper to get to the next hive so that they get used to each other's pheromones and just become one big blended family. So, liquid feed. I'm doing okay on that. The issue here is, though, and I can't show you because if I do I'll be opening the hives. I don't want to do that yet. Is that there's so many bees trying to get to the feed that they are drowning in their efforts and then clogging the access that the other bees have to the syrup. I don't know what to do about that. I haven't seen this until I started adding Hive Alive to the colonies. I had seen it with internal feeders, but not with top feeders, which is one of the reasons I use top feeders, is there's less deaths. Well, they love the Hive Alive stuff so much that they're itching to get to it. Next, I'm going to remove this purple box. I do have a piece of foam board here. I'm going to move it slowly, gently. I don't want to lose anybody. The queen could be in either box if she's hatched. I'll go through the yellow box first and search for her, find her and mark her if she's hatched. And then I'll go through the purple box. There might be a good deal of propolis sealing these hives together, so I'm going to use my hive tool to go between the hives and crack it. It's one way I have to actually check for propolis. Propolis is a great thing. The northern race bees produce more propolis than the southern race bees. Something you want to think about when you're choosing which bees to have for your own apiary. Ready? Oh, heavy. All right, what we have here, and I can show you this, is that the bees have not chewed their way through the newspaper yet. That concerns me, although it's only been a few days. I'm going to go ahead and remove the newspaper because I want to find that queen and mark her. I do much better with queens that I can find. I have a tote here. I use them a lot. If we don't want to call it a tote, let's call it a big plastic box. I have it because as I pull frames, I put them right into there. I don't want to lose any bees. I don't want to drop the queen. And that way everyone stays safe. My smoker that was enthusiastically smoking is going down. But I've got some fuel here. I've got some spruce cones, some moose poop, and some toilet paper, as well as twine. Whatever works. I'm going to be replacing this so I actually get to see the part that did not get recorded when I did this originally because my phone ran out of juice. There is some wax cappings on this newspaper. It's not raining today. Makes this easier. I'm gently pulling this off. There's bees underneath. I'm going to set it aside. What I see here is this small colony huddled around where that queen cell is. This is a 6-frame nucleus hive. I see 4 frames of bees. Not enough bees. Something's going to happen fast. Something's got to happen fast. I will be putting some liquid feed on top of these frames. Nothing's going on in this frame. I'm going to set it in the tote. I do it short side down. The bees aren't sounding very manic. They aren't sounding manic at all. And they typically do when they're without a queen, so she may have hatched. I want to make sure I have quick access to my queen catcher because I don't want to have to stop and look away when I find her. You can see this colony is small and the queen cell is hatched. So she's in here unless she's absconded. She will be a slight little thing. I've got a couple cells that have hatched here. I'm going to lightly blow. Ignore the train if you can. Lightly blowing on them to separate the bees to look for this new queen. Sometimes when looking directly does not work, looking at the bees on an angle does work. I use my camera a lot to record what I'm seeing so I can look at it later. I have been fascinated with finding the black bees. We get a few. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to look at this at an angle. Queens tend to move differently. They move slower, a little more deliberately, but that's when they're laying. I'm looking for an unfertilized queen. She should still be much larger than the worker bees. Like I said, it's only 50 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's a bit chilly for them. Although some of them are foraging already. I don't see her on this frame. This is the frame that has most of the bees on it. So I'm going to lightly run my finger over the tops of the bees. You can see they're calm, I'm calm. I have to look super close. I don't see her. I'm holding the frame over the hive, you can tell. So if anyone drops, they're going to drop into the hive. I don't see her on this frame. I'm looking at them in a grid pattern. If you don't know what that is, it means I'm looking up and down, and then I'm looking across, instead of just all over the place. I do not see her on either side. Sometimes they'll hang around the sides. She's not on this frame. I'm going to put it back. There's no brood. This would be a good time to treat for mites with oxalic acid vapors, in that when you treat with vapors, they can't permeate the wax cells of the sealed brood. This way, the vapors could get on all the bees. We've got a good deal of pollen and nectar. Once again, I'm blowing on the bees. This colony's gotten super small. If I had a smaller nuke hive, I would move them to that hive, because the population is so small. I just really want to be sure. I've got drones, I've got workers. They've gone to all that trouble to make a new queen. I want her to show herself so she can get busy. Nectar, pollen, bee bread. This queen might be real small. I am seeing some things that I'm curious about. Seems that the population was bigger a couple of days ago. I am not seeing her. I don't want another queenless hive. It seems like there are queen struggles with queens in our environment. Because of the cold, because of the stress, I don't know. Nonetheless, it's not uncommon for area beekeepers to have to find a new queen or replace a queen that has absconded or has stopped laying. If I don't find her in here, I'm wondering, I wouldn't expect a newly hatched queen to go flying around. I would err on the side of I've missed her. It is starting to sprinkle again. How many days? It's been great for our planting, but it's not so great for our bees. I'm going to drizzle some sugar syrup on the tops here, on the tops of the frames. Light drizzle. I don't want the bees to get wet and get chilled. I usually have a generic ketchup type bottle where I can squirt more accurately just a stream of syrup. This is not the best way to do it. I'll put some on the fondant and the pollen patty. A little moisture. They need the energy. They're moving slow. I'm going to move my smoker, it's getting in my face. So the bees are moving up top to get to that syrup. They're hungry. It's been a few days. They're going right to the top. What I risk is squishing them. I don't want to do that. What I know is going to happen is that moisture is going to add to the vulnerability of this newspaper. I'm puzzled about this queen. I would really like to find her and mark her. So this is exactly what I did the other day. Lay down the newspaper in between the colonies and then attach them. Now the propolis that the bees have made to keep out any drafts is connecting the feeder to the bees. I'm going to lay that on my foam board and look at this colony. A lot more bees in this colony than the colony below. Might as well do a quick hive check. The sprinkling has stopped. See what I got going here. I'm not expecting much. I should take that out. If I leave that frame out, it gives me more room to move around. I get more room to move these frames. A lot of drones in here. Oops, big daddy drones. Nectar, lots of nectar. You can see it, it's shiny. Lots of drones. I want to check in here and see if, I doubt it, but is there any magical way that the queen could have gotten up here? I didn't see any spots in the newspaper where there were holes. Drones don't sting, they mate. It's the workers who are the grand majority of the population in here that sting. I'm looking for everything here. I've got nectar, I've got pollen, I have some fecal matter. Tiny bit, not much. Sometimes fecal matter is just fecal matter. Sometimes it is dysentery caused by nosema virus, which is horrible. I scraped it off with my hive tool. Looking around, I see some brood comb. My blowing on them allows them to separate without startling them. There's a lot of drone comb on here, which I'm not crazy about because that's where we're going to find the varroa. Varroa loves to feed off the drone comb. There is a dead bee on the bottom. I'm going to just scrape her off. She's been there a few days apparently. I've got a guard bee circling me trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know if you can see or not. So there's good activity, more activity with these bees. I do have on here supersede your cell. That has been opened by a queen or has not had a larva in it. I see no queen here. They are humming along at a nice tone. Already I can see on the bottom they've gone to the newspaper, which I want them to do since it's chilly. It's cozier to hang out nestled next against each other to stay warm. But if there's syrup to be found on the bottom, they'll go down there. Food over comfort. Maybe this is the queen. This one is swimming around me and checking me out. This colony is small, but much larger than the colony yellow hive. The queen should be noticeable. Longer thorax. She might be a bit thin, but I'm guessing she has not mated. Last time I was in here, she hadn't hatched, so she hasn't had enough time to sexually mature. If she hatched that day, between then and now, she has not had enough time to sexually mature and start mating. So if I'm seeing any eggs, then another queen has taken up in this hive. This hive, it's really small, and I would expect it probably won't survive the winter. However, our weather is changing so drastically, it just might. We get some warm spells, we get some laying going on, and I'll condense them into one nuke box. All bees go into one box for northern overwintering. One deep or one nuke. Nukes are great because it's easier to stay warm in there. We don't do 2 boxes because then there's too much dead air space. We only do a bottom entrance. Top entrance creates a chimney effect, and we don't want to lose any heat. I've got another supersedure cell. Trying to make mental note, and another, what is that, 6? As to how many I'm finding, so I can add it on my app. It's where I track my data. It's too hard to remember everything. I've got drone comb supersedure cells that look like they've either, well, this one's got an egg in it, but they've either hatched or they've been ripped open. I see no queen here. Doesn't mean she's not. Keep that in mind. I've got another one here, another supersedure cell. You probably saw it before I did, right here. And so supersedure cell is made when the queen's pheromones are diminishing or she's absconded from the hive. Different than a swarm cell. Supersedure cell is a cry for help. A swarm cell is a jubilant celebration of a very healthy colony that's ready to duplicate. Part of them will take off, form their own colony, and leave behind the rest of the colony. So you end up with 2. It's kind of like them doing their own split. Good activity with the bees. Waggle dancing happening, which means they've identified where the nectar and the pollen is, and they're communicating that. Bees are doing their little antenna touching communication. I really need these bees to combine with the other hive, if for no other reason than population and warmth. All right. That initial frame I took out, I'm going to put on this end. People say don't mess with your frame order. That is specific to the brood nest, which is in the center of the hive, which is where the queen lays, and that is the warmest part of the hive. This colony here has access to the syrup. So I don't need to add some on top. They still have some fondant and some corn patty. Get this back on, make sure it's secure. Didn't forget anything. And now I'm going to ratchet it up. Not a ratchet strap, but a hive strap. Much easier if you've been using ratchets. These are so much easier. To keep this hive secure, we're supposed to have some gusting winds of 40 miles an hour. And when our weather projection says that, you can bet we're going to have 40 mile an hour winds. 34, 35, 40 mile an hour winds. Trees fall, moose panic a little bit. Perfect opportunity to knock a hive over. I learned this last year. Alright, unlock this and stop this video. Alright, I hope your summer's going well. Take care of yourself, take care of your bees, say prayers for Ukraine. This video is copyrighted and all rights reserved. Take care.